Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. An acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I am your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to the live broadcast on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, and I want to thank you for tuning in today and letting us share our buds with your buds. It is Wednesday, Leap Day, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and I want to give a shout out to all the people who are working in the foxholes in this war on drugs trying to end these horrible policies. Of course, we don't want to call it a war on drugs. You know, the drug czar office says, "Oh, that's such a nasty, nasty word. It just seems so ugly. Let's call it a policy, or let's call it a an event, or let's just call it anything but a war on drugs. It's just too violent." And then, of course, the people at LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, also kind of agree with that. They're saying, well, if you call it a war on drugs, you keep that mentality, and then some side's got to surrender because the other side wins, and nobody wants to surrender. So if we call it something nice, maybe no one surrenders. Maybe people just wake up and get smart. So that's what we're going to be talking about today on LEAP Day, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and a groovy little TV show that has brought a lot of information into the discussion of today's common culture. And I also want to remind people there are a few people who are heading up to Seattle this weekend for a little event called the Seattle Hemp Fest that brings in about 150 to 200,000 people each of the 3 days that it is open. And I, your little host, Casper Leitch, on those little broadcasts of nearly 2 million people around the world, I am going to be a guest speaker at the Seattle Hemp Fest. I'm also going to be recording video interviews for Cannabis Common Sense and to share on YouTube. So if you want to hang out together, you're going to be at Seattle Hemp Fest, come find me and we will smoke out. And I will also be looking for Neil Franklin, who I probably will not be smoking out with. He's a former police officer and has to keep his little reputation intact for all the millions of people that go to LEAP and want to be part of the law enforcement against prohibition. LEAP Day, my joint host, Peter Chris, and anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, nearly 2 million people all around the world pack their pipes, their vaporizers, and do what I'm doing right now and take time for hemp. Peter, my bowl's packed and I need a hit, so I'm going to pass this on to you and our joint guest, Diane Goldstein.
Well, thank you, Casper. It's one of those things you pass that you don't have to worry about if you're getting it back or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. We've had the holder there come out and say that they're actually going to soften the pain of this stupid policy instead of ending it. So I'm not overly excited about that. I'm sure Diane will have some views on it. And also, Casper, I want to congratulate you on speaking at the Hemp Fest. It's a good place for you. When you mentioned about LEAP speakers there, I always tell people that whether or not people at LEAP use smoke weed or not, when they are on the road, they aren't on the road as themselves. They are on the road as LEAP, and LEAP doesn't smoke. So,
which is why I've never volunteered to go on the road as a guest speaker for your organization, and I've chosen to do it here at home from the confines of my house and radio program.
Absolutely, absolutely. Diane, how you doing?
Very good, Peter. You and I keep missing each other, but now we get a chance to catch up and chat on the radio, which I love. Casper, thank you very much for having me on. You know, there are some interesting things happening in the news this week that I think are important. Holder, it's laudable that he's coming out and saying the war on drugs is, targeted African Americans and minorities, and we're going to, change this around a little bit. But it's like baby steps, and a day late and a dollar short, because he doesn't address the overall issues, which is that drug prohibition needs to be ended completely, and we need to bring it over into a public health model. So at this point, I'm kind of the pessimist. Normally, I look at the world as a glass half full. But when it comes to DOJ and our government, I look at it as a glass half empty, because they're behind the times. So the good news is public sentiment, I believe, is pushing them forward to this tipping point. And I think that the other thing that really, to me, was very positive, because I think we can get more play on this, is the Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who came out on Sunday publicly on CNN in an hour documentary and said, guess what, folks? The government has been misleading us about cannabis. Yep. And mentioned the DEA specifically. I think we're going to get a lot more play and a lot more benefit from that than Eric Holder. So with Eric Holder, I'm saying, nice words. Let's see you model the behavior.
Well, it's interesting because when you mentioned the Sanjay Gupta thing, my first comment on that is, now that he's been educated about marijuana, now we have to educate him about prohibition.
Oh, absolutely. But I think it's baby steps for a lot of these people.
Oh, yeah, Peter. It is.
And I know we've had this discussion here. And one of the things now that I'm doing is whenever I speak in front of cannabis activists, whether they're patients or legalization proponents, is I always talk about is, remember, LEAP is in here for the long run. We are in here for the long haul. And when and if we win the cannabis prohibition fight, please don't forget us, because there are hundreds of thousands of other people that have been criminalized just as wrongly as the cannabis consumers are.
Good friend of mine's a local attorney, and when he wants to get away from the office, he gives me a call and comes up here to hide in the woods for a couple hours. And he was up yesterday, and we were talking about the Holder thing. And his comment was this, and I thought it was an interesting way to look at it. He said, if in 1863, instead of signing the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln had signed a law that said you're not allowed to keep slaves over the age of 50, that would have been better for the people over the age of 50, but it wouldn't have ended slavery. And he said that's what he heard Holder saying, is that we're going to take this half gap, but we're going to let the policy still be in effect, but we're going to try to make it a little bit softer so people don't complain about it as much. And that's why I said I wasn't particularly impressed with it.
Yeah. I know that a lot of the drug policy organizations are taking the view of it's a positive step, but one that should have been taken a long time ago. And who knows what the world will look like in a post-prohibition model, because I think all of us have agreed that none of us at LEAP can agree what that model is going to be potentially, but we need to at least move it away into a public health model, and then we can have the very important discussion about how we use harm reduction to manage America's drug use and abuse, because we do have responsible drug use just like we have irresponsible drug abuse.
And it's interesting because we look at the successes we've had, the tobacco situation, the reduction in fatal accidents over the last 30 years due to alcohol related, because we didn't ban alcohol, we just enforced the DWI laws, and people learned in the process, and that's what happens. And I always like to use the example, if you're an alcoholic in America and you're drinking every day, but you never drink and drive, and you never hurt other people or other people's property, and I'll ask my audience, what do we do to you? And the answer is nothing. And that's exactly what we should do to people that are using drugs and aren't harming other people or other people's property.
Yep, absolutely. So that's the good news. So now the bad news out of at least Michigan is I just read a blog piece today on a city in Michigan called Jackson is restricting, just passed an ordinance restricting the use of medical marijuana in people's personal homes.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, a measure was passed Tuesday night by a 43 vote of the Jackson City Council, goes into effect on September 12th, and it will require medical marijuana users and caregivers to use only 20% of their homes for drug use and cultivation. Huh?
I feel safer. No,
Yeah.
I was getting horrified at the idea that my neighbors would ultimately turn their entire home, their bathroom, their bedrooms, and even their TV rooms into a grow room. Oh, thank God the government's watching out for me.
Yep. Yep. So I think what we're seeing is as we take, 3 steps forward, we go 2 steps backwards. And,
Yep.
we just, and there are days, being a policy reformer and an activist, I think is very frustrating for all of us because today, I mean, if I was that, the Queen of the United States, I would immediately change the whole entire policy. But, I'm hoping, kind of like I used to hope for a new police station when I worked for the city of Redondo Beach is, damn it, by the time I'm really officially retired or dead, I will have managed to make a change in our community in the positive direction. So,
Well, that's the thing. And that's the thing that, as you mentioned before, that we at LEAP as an organization have no position on what the post-prohibition environment should look at because we come from all different political points of view and all different points of view. But we all know because of our experience in our profession that this policy doesn't work. When you go out and you criminalize things that people want to do together, you create crime in your society. And if there's money involved in that activity, you create violence in your society. And it's not the function of government to monitor what you do in the privacy of your home. It's the function of government to make sure nobody breaks into your home and disturbs your privacy.
absolutely. Yeah. So on other, so we'll go from good to bad, good to bad. So the good news is some other good news comes out of Nevada, where Nevada finally approved their regulations for medical marijuana, and it is probably the best regulatory model I have seen across our nation. It has both reciprocity with other medical marijuana states. So you can come in there with your recommendation and you don't have to worry about crossing state lines or transporting drugs, if you're going back and forth. It approves a for-profit model. So it doesn't punish good business owners in America who want to come in and actually make a difference. And so I'm really, really pleased to see that happen. And I think we should acknowledge the Nevada legislator for grabbing the bull by the horns, although it took them a long time to do it, and to create something that hopefully future medical marijuana states can move towards, because quite frankly, in California, the thing that has undermined patient access, good, legitimate business owners, and only given the cops and the crooks the ability to undermine Proposition 215 is when we engaged in making our model a not-for-profit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and these are capitalists that make this decision. They rave about the concept of capitalism and profit and how it drives industry and all this other, and then they pass a law like this and they try to make it not for profit. It's bizarre to me. And the whole conservative view of this thing, and that's what you're seeing in the law up in Michigan and stuff like that. These are all people that talk about getting the government out of the way. The government's and then they tell the government that the government's got a right to tell you not just what drugs you can take, but I don't want to just yell at other states, but how big your soda bottle can be.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So on to other positive drug war news is this week also, as well as Sanjay Gupta coming out of the closet, out of the cannabis closet, so to speak, is that a New York judge struck down New York's stop and frisk policy as completely being unconstitutional. And instead of killing it completely, which would have been my preference, they're going to do a federal monitor of New York PD and stop and frisk. So I think that's finally a bit of good news in New York. Other positive news out of New York is 2, if not 3, of their candidates for, mayor of New York are basically actively coming out, including 1 Republican and 2 Democrats, saying part of their policy is that marijuana should be completely legal. And so I think that's the one thing that LEAP has done very well, is that we've given a voice to conservatives and to, social conservative folks who may not use marijuana, but realize that the policy is a failure.
Exactly. In fact, it's the thing that when I dreamt about this organization back in the 90s, I thought of, like it says in our stuff, that the idea was based on Vietnam veterans against the war. And I'm sure, Diane, in some of the presentations you've had people that have very vehemently disagreed with you. But I'll bet you nobody has ever looked at you and said after you've done a presentation, you don't understand the problem.
But I bet somebody has said it is time for a commercial break occasionally in your path in life. And we are going to do that now. We're going to take a break and pay our bills so that we can stay on the air. Remind you to go to timeforhemp.com in the afternoons. The current broadcast of each day is auto-playing on the website. All of our archives are being found there now. And, of course, you can hit the donate button. And you can find all of our shows up in iTunes. After the commercial break, we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then we're going to come back and take a whole lot more time for hemp.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org. Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Green Glass Clean is a 100% green liquid cleaner that is designed to wash the toughest resin stains from pipes, bongs, and hookahs. Green Glass Clean is safe to use on glass, plastic, ceramic, wood, and about anything you smoke from, so you can enjoy the full flavor of your smoke. Green Glass Clean is easy to use. Just dilute a small amount, then soak, rinse, and dry. Green Glass Clean will gently dissolve any stuck-on crud from your pipe, keeping your smoking gear fresh and clean. Order Green Glass Clean at greenglassclean.com. And for those stubborn, hard-to-reach resin spots that just won't come off, there is the Gak Attack Brush Pack. Gak Attack Brush Pack keeps your smoking gear clean and looking shiny. The tough yet gentle nylon bristles scrub and scrape buildups and residue with ease. Wire-braided handle bends for easy maneuvering without damaging your smoking apparatus. Using the Gak Attack Brush Pack with Green Glass Clean will keep your pipes, bongs, and hookahs clean. Order your Gak Attack Brush Pack by going to gakattack.com.
It's time for hemp prohibition to end. The cannabis legalization movement has long waited to have congressional or Senate hearings to present the failure of drug prohibition, medical benefits of cannabis, and more. Time for Hemp is tired of waiting for the cannabis movement to get such an invitation and has organized this 5 2-hour conference series special. Time for Hemp will be hosting live specials to produce a global cannabis summit with some of the most brilliant minds and amazing leaders of the industrial hemp and medical cannabis movement. This presentation will be broadcasted live on American Freedom Radio online, AM/FM stations across America, and on Roku, and will be archived at American Freedom Radio and on iTunes. During each commercial-free broadcast, moderators will conduct discussions with 6 expert panelists brought together from all corners of the earth to present the most current research and statistics concerning this trillion-dollar industry. Tune in live starting each Friday this August at 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This special presentation is being hosted by Casper Leitch on AmericanFreedomRadio.com.
Yes, smoke the says so, yes. The truth it is, I have to confess. Officer, nobody charge me. It's more fun, piece of ganja. Your Honor, no charge me. It's more distance to me now. Officer, nobody lock me up. It's more fun, piece of ganja. Your Honor, no charge me. It's more distance to me now. I know the sense is good for my brain, and it was found on Solomon's grave. Believe what I say. It cure the flu and it cure your asthma. You think I joke me and make one go ask the doctor. Believe me, Your Honor. So officer, nobody charge me. It's more fun, piece of ganja. Your Honor, no charge me. It's more distance to me now. Officer, nobody lock me up. It's more fun, piece of ganja. Your Honor, no charge me. It's more distance to me now. Sense me, I send the rascal to school. Me never take up no gun, feel no tool. Can't take I'm this fool. Well, if you love me up for the stairs, lock up the man for the sugar cane. The sense is good for the brain. When I need some meditation, you think I joke as any Rasta man. All the liar, I light it up. A meditation time, me not commit no crime. Me love me ganja right up, me love me life. Smoke ganja and eat piece of pie. So officer, nobody charge me. Me smoke one piece of ganja. Your Honor, no charge me. Me smoke distance to me now. Officer, nobody lock me up. Me smoke one piece of ganja. Your Honor, no charge me. Me smoke distance to me now. Ganja man from Italy. Now show forgives them no pity. Everyone attack out, that's Mr. Pretty. No Make we take back on our Jamaica. Westmoreland now we take Clarendon. Digging up all of the ganja man. So officer no bother lock me up. It's more fun piece of ganja. Your honor no charge me. It's more sense to me now. Officer no bother lock me up. It's more fun piece of ganja. Your honor no charge me. It's more sense to me now. Just give me the sense from long away. Yes, it's the best. I have to confess. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Me light up the sense. Yes. A meditation time. Me not commit no crime. Me love me ganja right home. Me love me life. Smoke ganja and it is a fine. Long time officer no bother lock me up. This smoke and piece of ganja. Your honor no charge me. This smoke is sense to me now. Officer no bother lock me up. This smoke and piece of ganja. Your honor no charge me. This smoke is sense to me now.
You are listening to Time for Hemp live all around the world on American Freedom Radio, and I want to say thank you to the amazing staff of people at American Freedom Radio, especially Adam. He's doing a hard-working job there, keeping everything running and going. And if you like what you hear on the big broadcast, I would encourage you to go to AmericanFreedomRadio.com and hit the donate button. And I would also want to give a shout out to KDK Distributors and Head Shop Canada and thank them for giving us a grant to keep us loud, proud, and strong. I want to remind you that on Fridays each week here in August, we start an hour earlier each Friday. We are doing the Time for Hemp 2013 Global Summit. And Michael Crowitz from Patients at a Time and also Veterans with Marijuana is the moderator this week. We are talking about the international treaties. Here's the deal before we get back to the conversation. Each Friday of this month, we are hosting 2-hour specials so that by the end of the month, we will have produced a 10-hour, which actually turns out to be 11-hour presentation. And it is comprised of people from all around the world, some of the most brilliant minds and amazing leaders in the industrial hemp and medical cannabis movement. All the brilliant minds of people who have come onto this program day after day after week after week after month after year after year. I am stunned, absolutely stunned, that members of our Congress and members of our Senate have not asked members of my guest list to come into the congressional halls, into the Senate halls, and into the White House to discuss these horrific policies that are destroying lives. You know, if someone farts in the wind wrong, we have congressional hearings about how we got to outlaw beans. If someone fires off a BB gun, we got 15 people parading through the halls of the Senate talking about the need to confiscate guns. God forbid 35 million people get arrested for the utilization of medical marijuana, and farmers want to grow industrial hemp to free us from dependency on foreign oil. And Congress stays mute. The Senate stays mute. The White House ignores us. Elvin Maseka, Irv Rosenfeld, who are getting medical marijuana from the government, and our Congress stays mute. Well, Time for Hemp has had its belly full of being mute, of being quiet, and we have put together this summit so that our congressional members and our Senate members and the White House and the leaders of the UN will no longer have an excuse to say, I didn't know, I was not aware, I did not know that information existed, because when we get done with this global summit, it will be a downloadable in MP3 format, and everybody on Earth can send it to their leaders, and ignorance will finally die. With that said, I pass the conversation back to my joint host and my joint guest here on Time for Hemp.
Well, thank you, Casper. I like to think how long it took us to figure out that gay people were human beings. You know,
Yeah,
it,
yeah. Peter, it's so interesting how so many of the analogies of where the cannabis legalization movement can learn from the LGBT movement. And I was talking to someone at Freedom Fest this last month who was at CPAC and said, interesting enough, one of the panels at CPAC that was the most widely packed was the breakout session on gay marriage and how widely supported it was even at CPAC, but people aren't actively coming out and talking about it.
Yep. It takes a long time sometimes for some people to learn the obvious. I mean, as my mother used to put it, common sense ain't so common.
Yeah, there no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a matter of education. I mean, it's and one of the things I look at incrementalism all back through movements throughout history, and I look at the women's right to vote issue as an incrementalist movement because it got the right to vote, but then the women's rights movement lay dormant for almost 40 years before it actually started moving ahead to get equal rights for women in this country. And that's because they got the right to vote and they thought, oh, gee, it's all over. That's settled. It's kind of like the marijuana issue. And what I predict is that once marijuana is legalized, once it's removed from Schedule 1, first off, about 50% of the people that are in this movement will leave. And then we'll have about a 2-year lull. And then everybody will start complaining. And what they'll be complaining about is this. You said if we legalize this stuff, that the violence and the crime would go away. But we still got the gangs. And then we'll have to get back to the issue of prohibition and start the discussion all over again. But I'm not in this for the short haul. I've been in this since I get into it for the long haul.
Yeah, and you know what, Peter, and you bring up a good point, but I'm going to take the optimist road on this.
Okay.
That I think with LEAP, as long as within the next few years, I mean, what do we just have? We now have 20 states that actively support either medical marijuana or legalized marijuana, that actually have passed bills. And, even in a CNN article today, I can't remember what former federal judge was quoted, who basically stated is marijuana is taking the exact road of alcohol prohibition, and it's going to get to the point where we as judges are basically no longer going to even put out fines or send people to jail if they continue to come in front of us. And what you'll see is the law is going to change simply because of the activism level. And so the prosecutors will quit filing cases. And then as this is happening, LEAP needs to go out and continue to spread the message. And I think that our goal is to educate those cannabis consumers, because if we don't, then you're right, it may happen. But I have more faith in the cannabis community because they understand that it's not just a short-term fight. It's legalization isn't just going to protect them. It's ending the drug war in totality.
Right. If you want access to these pharmaceuticals, you got to get somehow the government just. In fact, it's that quote of mine. Legalization simply means elimination of Schedule 1. All other discussion is about regulation. I don't know. I don't know how we sit here in a free nation and grant the power to government to prohibit us from accessing and deciding what we decide to put in our own bodies. I don't understand how a thought. And when you were talking, I wanted to mention this earlier on, when you were talking about the drug war term at the beginning of the show. I have this vision of the Nixon White House in the 70s looking for something to divert everybody from looking at them and deciding that they were going to make the drug issue the big deal, and then deciding that they needed to call it something. And somebody, I'm making this up, but I have this vision of somebody sitting at the table saying, well, why don't we call it the new prohibition? And everybody else looking at him and going, no, 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 no. Everybody in America knows that doesn't work. We can't call it that. How about war? How about drug war? That way everybody's got to be on our side because you're disloyal if you're not supporting them. And that's where the term came from. It didn't come from anything else. They couldn't call it by its real name, so they had to invent something else, so they invented something that you would look like you were disloyal if you were against it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. But you know what? I'll tell you what's interesting. I think there's a couple things is there's the propaganda issue. And I think finally Americans are starting to wake up that we need to have our hands on the steering wheel, and we need to ensure that our legislators do what we want them to do, not what they want to do. We need to hold them accountable. So I think we're going to be less likely to fall to that propaganda level because in some aspects, although Americans have been dumbed down educationally, we have, in fact, because of technology, have access to more information, which is changing how we view our government.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Peter.
No, I was just going to say real quick that also earlier, I think you mentioned something about these people that are still in the business coming around to it. We understand those people at Leitch because we are those people.
Yep.
I mean, many of our people were true believers in this drug war when they were on the job and when they were doing it. And then for each of them, a different thing turned on the light. But all of a sudden, the light came on. So when we're talking to one of these people that's still buying the bowl, okay, but they're still in the business, we know exactly how to talk to them because we went through exactly the same experience.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And so I think that's incredibly important.
Well, and you talk about and I don't mean to interrupt, but you talk about how, the information accessible. That is one of the things that really frost my rear end is that how the Obama administration came in saying that they were going to rely on the most up-to-date data, the most scientific evidence on all of their decision-making process. And look what they've done with these policies. And on top of it, Obama's daughters can go to a computer and Google search industrial hemp and Google search medical marijuana and learn more in 6 minutes than what Obama professes to know after 50 years of living.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what is what he knows and what he professes to know. I think are two different things. And it's just, I think sometimes, sadly, it's the state of affairs when you start talking about politicians is that
I got to jump in here because I agree. But one thing I got to talk about apparently is Father Time. It is a commercial break so we can pay our bills. And after that, we're going to come back and pick up where we left off here at Time for Hemp.
It's time for hemp prohibition to end. The cannabis legalization movement has long waited to have congressional or Senate hearings to present the failure of drug prohibition, medical benefits of cannabis, and more. Time for Hemp is tired of waiting for the cannabis movement to get such an invitation and has organized this 5 2-hour conference series special. Time for Hemp will be hosting live specials to produce a global cannabis summit with some of the most brilliant minds and amazing leaders of the industrial hemp and medical cannabis movement. This presentation will be broadcasted live on American Freedom Radio online, AM, FM stations across America, and on Roku, and will be archived at American Freedom Radio and on iTunes. During each commercial-free broadcast, moderators will conduct discussions with 6 expert panelists brought together from all corners of the earth to present the most current research and statistics concerning this trillion-dollar industry. Tune in live starting each Friday this August at 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This special presentation is being hosted by Casper Leitch on AmericanFreedomRadio.com.
Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Green Glass Clean is a 100% green liquid cleaner that is designed to wash the toughest resin stains from pipes, bongs, and hookahs. Green Glass Clean is safe to use on glass, plastic, ceramic, wood, and about anything you smoke from, so you can enjoy the full flavor of your smoke. Green Glass Clean is easy to use. Just dilute a small amount, then soak, rinse, and dry. Green Glass Clean will gently dissolve any stuck-on crud from your pipe, keeping your smoking gear fresh and clean. Order Green Glass Clean at greenglassclean.com. And for those stubborn, hard-to-reach resin spots that just won't come off, there is the Gak Attack Brush Pack. Gak Attack Brush Pack keeps your smoking gear clean and looking shiny. The tough yet gentle nylon bristles scrub and scrape buildups and residue with ease. Wire-braided handle bends for easy maneuvering without damaging your smoking apparatus. Using the Gak Attack Brush Pack with Green Glass Clean will keep your pipes, bongs, and hookahs clean. Order your Gak Attack Brush Pack by going to gakattack.com.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Today podcast, and on the Time for Hemp Today podcast, we like to put a spotlight on hardworking activists from all around the world and include a little bit of music. And we're going to get back to the program here in just a minute, but a friend of mine, Kelly Christner from KDK Distributors, wants to make a special announcement to all the members of the audience of Time for Hemp. And Kelly, why don't you let people know all about that?
You betcha. We're lucky enough to be able to offer some totally 100% free vaporizers, high-quality vaporizers, to medical patients anywhere in the world who cannot afford one on their own. As I know, and probably most of you do who are listening, those on assisted income or disability pension, whatever the case may be, they can't work, they're ill, and they medicate with marijuana and find it difficult to be able to purchase a quality vaporizer. So it's super simple. If either you yourself or you can send one in for someone who you think might be very happy to receive a free vaporizer, send me an email with a little bit of information about the individual and, of course, a photograph, because we do publish the winners in Treating Yourself magazine, and send it to Kelly, Kelly, at kdkwholesale.ca. And once we receive it, we put it in our really small barrel and pick people out. Well, I have to say, in all honesty, we've doubled our giveaway thanks to the guys down at Buy Vape, and of course our ongoing relationship with the great folks at Herbal Air that have been with us since the beginning on this program. And, you know, we've doubled our giveaways, so I'm hoping that we can double our entries, because I got to tell you, in all honesty, we're starting to run low. So come on, you people out there. I know that there are just thousands of you. And please, can send in something, and because I'm telling you, we sure love giving them away, and we know it does great things. And thanks to both Herbal Air for originating the program, and 5-Vape for coming along, doubling our free vaporizer output.
And Kelly, I tell you, you are remarkable, very amazing. I've been uploading the past live shows into the Time for Hemp iTunes live podcast. You can find it for free on iTunes. All 3 years I'm getting them loaded up. Boy, it's a chore, but I'm making it happen. And I realized, my gosh, Kelly, I think you came on board like the third or fourth week that we went live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com back in 2009. You have been a backbone to this series, as well as the movement. And honestly, Kelly, this show would not be anywhere the strength it is, would not have anywhere the size of audience that it has, and our guests would not be heard as loudly as they are heard had it not been for the support of you and the amazing team at KDK. So
we've really made some difference in a lot of people's lives out there. It's not the fact that they actually save money because it reduces their need to use medical marijuana, because it reduces because it's way more efficient, and it reduces their consumption, so they save money. But also it's phenomenal for the health factor and receiving their medication in a much less harmful way. So it's a double-edged sword, and it really, really has gone to help some people out there who are really in need. And I know that, we can't reach them all, but I'll tell you what, we can reach a lot, and we are continuing to do that every month. So please keep your letters coming in, and let anybody you know, or any compassion clubs, or dispensaries or anything, let them know that this exists, and hopefully we can continue the program.
Because it is much, much healthier to vaporize than it is to burn and smoke, baby, huh?
Without question. Well, there are well over 20 carcinogens created by combustion, and of course they're eliminated. No rolling paper glue, no butane from a lighter. So yes, from a health perspective, it is a substantial improvement in terms of getting that medication into your body.
Well, Kelly, I want to thank you on behalf of the marijuana movement for your graciousness to make certain that people who are sick and need a healthy way to take their medication can do so. I also want to remind people that you can find all 4 of our podcasts up in the iTunes, and that is a great way to share these podcasts with all your friends all around the world. We have the Time for Hemp Music Podcast, Time for Hemp Classic Podcast, Time for Hemp Live podcast, and then the podcast that you are currently listening to, the Time for Hemp Today podcast, all found at iTunes. Also, if you go to timeforhemp.com, that's the number 4, timeforhemp.com, you can find lots of videos that you can download for free. There are segments of the original Time for Hemp TV series found there. Also, I've done interviews over the past couple of years at the Seattle Hemp Fest and the Portland Hemp Stock, and those are found there, as well are segments that I have been the joint host of on Cannabis Common Sense with Paul Stanford, who is the joint host on Time for Hemp Live every Thursday on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Well, we're going to listen to some music right now, and then we're going to come back and take a whole lot more Time for Hemp.
generations of hemp, cannabis, marijuana prohibition greatly contribute to planetary deforestation, pollution, and ozone destruction. Let hemp compete in construction, paper, fiber, fuel, nutritional, and pharmaceutical corporations. Cannabis has been safe, efficient medicine for many illnesses throughout all generations and for natural relaxation. Still, we spend hundreds of billions of dollars and throw away our Constitution to continue this insane persecution.
Looking for their medicine. They, their friends, relatives, and physicians constitute a large segment of the 11 million otherwise law-abiding citizens with criminal records due to this prohibition. No, it isn't right. You know you got no right to tear our happy home apart and break our heart. You call it war on drugs, but it's a war on us. You're taking him away. Where's freedom? Where's justice here? Stop arresting sick people. Stop putting innocent people in jail. No victim, no crime. No crime, no time.
Well, the Western had a bow, good green reefer, big fat Jones beef, much sweeter. Mighty don't hide it. Mighty don't hide it. Just mighty don't hide it. Mighty don't hide it. Well, mighty don't hide it. Fire it up right now.
Yeah, baby, fire up right now. Be loud, be proud. Come out of the closet. Let everybody know that you do utilize this remarkable plant, this amazing gift from nature, this thing called ganja. Now, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We are talking live here on American Freedom Radio, and we are discussing the need to end prohibition. Peter Chris, my joint host, and our joint guest, Diane Goldstein, and I are getting up to date as to what's going on. Now, Diane, I know that you sometimes like to, as my mama said, watch her stories. She used to watch the soap operas in the afternoon, and you are really excited about this one particular broadcast on the air, aren't you?
Yeah, you know what? I just recently wrote a blog on Breaking Bad because it's at the end of their run on AMC. And I'm not a big TV fan. I want you to know I don't sit there and watch lots and lots of TV. But there are certain shows that I think are modern day morality plays, kind of what used to happen during the Renaissance. Breaking Bad is, in fact, that show. So the nutshell version is Breaking Bad is about Walter White, who's a chemistry professor who gets lung cancer and ends up having to become a meth cooker and kingpin in order to give his family what he should have done in his previous life. Well, the last 4 seasons have gone into kind of his de-evolution of his morality. But the greater story is that he has a brother-in-law by the name of Hank, who's a DEA agent, who's been chasing around his alter ego for this whole entire time. Everyone thinks that Hank is the good character. And my blog was about showing how Hank is not good. That Hank is the epitome of the obsessive nature of law enforcement in their pursuit of eradicating drugs in America, which is ideological and impossible. And what happens to him is he goes off the edge. He violates his own personal ethics, policy, procedure, and engages in law enforcement corruption through unconstitutional policing. So it's the perfect microcosm of exactly what's happened in the last 40 years with the war on drugs.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when his brother becomes visible to him.
It's exactly. It's, you know, and so the tail end, not to give anything away, is the tail end of the last season was his brother now kind of has a hint that his brother-in-law may in fact be this elusive Heisenberg. So I'm curious to see how at the end, does Hank walk away and save the family and ignore what he should do? Or, how does he violate his own code of ethics to deal with this greater issue of what his brother-in-law has turned out to be?
It's interesting. We were talking, it's a Canadian board meeting, Leap Canada, and they were talking about some of the stuff that law enforcement was doing up in Canada. And I said, you know what your problem is in Canada? They said, what's that? I said, the same one we have down here in the States. They said, what's that? I said, you keep hiring human beings to be police officers. And the problem is we are a flawed species. And you can't be surprised when we act human and not professional, because we all do that from time to time,
Yeah.
And these things come up. It seems like perfect good sense to do this until you find out that the one you're going to be arrested is your son or your daughter or your brother-in-law or something like that. I often say that all cops are corrupt. And I have people, I said what the argument is about the level of corruption. And I have people say, do you really mean that? I go, yeah. I said, you're working a radar unit and a car goes by speeding. And when you pull that car over, you walk up to it, you realize that the person driving the car is your mother, who happens to be driving her friend's car that day. I'll be willing to bet you that you don't write her a ticket.
No, absolutely. And what's interesting, it used to be, because I sat on hiring boards, is we would never pass someone who said they would arrest their own mother or cite them or arrest their police chief.
Right.
Because it showed that they didn't have common sense.
Yeah.
And now that's gone away. You're seeing that lack of common sense as being valued in law enforcement. We've taken away, and I think that's that mandatory minimums, the designing policy that gives people no discretion. And so we have literally dumbed down our police forces and not taught them how to treat people fairly. And what's fair for this one person may be a different form of justice for another one. Now we have to just criminalize everybody. And again, that was because of abuses. It is. So how do we bring back that sense of restorative justice to law enforcement instead of just criminalizing everybody? I was just on a panel with Steve Downing out in Temecula. They had a undercover sting operation on a high school campus that specifically ended up targeting some special needs kids. And one of the kids is a kid by the name of Jesse Snodgrass. Now, Jesse, if you met him, within 2 seconds of meeting him, I could tell that there's no way this kid would have been competent to understand the decision he was making about procuring his friend marijuana. And so, he's got no social skills. He's bipolar. He's got Tourette syndrome. He's got so many different maladies. And yet an undercover cop became his best buddy and sent him 60 text messages and acted like his friend in order to get a so-called small-time dealer off a high school campus. And it just, to me, was what a lack of compassion, what a lack of training, what a lack of focus. I mean, this undercover operation is indicative of the failure of the war on drugs, that we actually potentially have to have undercover sting operations on our high school campuses. And then we target kids that are the most needy and at risk.
Exactly. Well, as Randy Belko says in his new book, a lot of that's got to do with the militarization of police too.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the drug war again. That's where that comes from. And we're almost on the break. Do you have anything that you want to plug out there, Diane, that's going on, or anything that's coming up?
No, I'll be at INCHI in San Francisco on September 7th, which is a medical marijuana symposium. So if you guys are up in the Bay Area, come see me. Please tell everyone hello at Hemp Fest. And Don't forget to look up the Coalition for Cannabis Policy Reform, which is working on public education hand in hand with LEAP. And go view our new LEAP PSA, book a speaker.
Very good. And I will give it one last plug for LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, leap.cc, or copssaylegalizedrugs.com. And the only way that bad things continue to happen is good people, like you people listening right now, if you stay silent. That's how bad things continue to happen. Casper?
It has been a fantastic show. I want to remind people, if you go to iTunes and type into the search engine Time for Hemp, all of our podcasts pop up and they are free to listen. And you can also find our archives at timeforhemp.com. That's the number 4. And when you go there, each day's program also autoplays. So if you missed the show on the morning broadcast live, you can always enjoy it throughout the day when you go to timeforhemp.com. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for him. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison